8, and you're telling about finding, meeting someone, a survivor in Israel, who told you about Buchenwald.
Well, anyway, to get back to that story about the ashes. And so, symbolically, I came to the decision, I have no choice in it, but these are ashes. If they are either my father's or somebody else's, symbolically, I would say it's the same thing. What is the difference? So at any rate, he was buried in Vienna at a cemetery, which is about the only actually cemetery, their Jewish cemetery, where these people, these Jewish people, they selected a section there where they buried these people. Now, lots of people in those days, Jewish people, a similar situation as my mother was, must have been in the same situation, very poor, and couldn't afford to buy a monument. So a little stone was prepared or donated to them, where they put my father's name in there, and his name and his birth and when he died, and that's about it. So I went to see this several years ago, and so did my brother, and so did my son Jeffrey. He went there, he went to Vienna, and he saw it, and he brought back pictures. Anyway, thereafter I made up my mind that I'm going to have a mission one day, that I will go to Vienna and I will put up a monument, a very, very special monument, and on it I will put in writing exactly what happened and why they are there. And so I did. And this, I have pictures of it. I don't know if you wish it, you can take a picture of it thereafter. And on it I said how they died. Now, and that was my mission, to go there to do this, and we did that. We went there in 1997. And I put the monument on there. And I was very, very glad that I did. And that was the least I could do for what they did, for how they sacrificed themselves for us. Sorry to have to say that my brother could not have come with me. I'm so sorry he died of a heart attack, of an acute heart attack several years ago, about 4 5 years ago. He had an acute heart attack, and he didn't survive it, and he died, and he's buried in Chicago. And at any rate, on that gravestone, on that monument, I put the whole story as to what happened, and I closed the story with Jack and Norbert, USA. Put his name on there for the same, because he lived through the same thing. And that's the story about the gravestone and the monument of my father. There it stands. No, my mother might not be buried there, my father might not be buried there, but the monument stands there as a sole reminder and monument to them, and a tribute to them for as long as it would stand there. I even spoke to the guy who made the monument to kind of reinforce it in the back, because I knew that some hotheads climbed over the walls there at night and desecrated the cemetery and the stones and toppled them. They do this today, I want you to know. Today. Not only in Vienna, I'm sure all over Europe. That's what I say about these anti-Semites. That's what they are. They do things crazy things for no reason whatsoever. They know not themselves even why they do that. I have to do this. So I had this monument reinforced in the back with a steel rod, so they'll be very difficult to topple over. But I'm sure they could find a way to one day, who knows.
Have you ever been involved with any of the Holocaust organizations?
Yes. Have I been involved with any of the Holocaust organizations? I am, very much so, right here in Orlando. We have a Holocaust museum. I attend the Yom HaShoah days, memorials, and all the time. As much as is necessary. I don't know what I could possibly do, but if there were anything, they would ask me. I'd be very happy to do anything. We'll see. Maybe there is something that they'll ask me to do. I'll be very happy to volunteer for anything. Wherever any time I have, I'll be very glad to give some of my time to that.
Are you in touch with any of the other children who were together with you at the castle?
No. You asked me if I'm in touch with any of the other, with any of the other children from the castle. I was for a little while, had a very good friend of mine, but then he died. And died several years ago, maybe about 8, 9 years ago. And but most of those children were dispersed. But I found other children from my neighborhood. My buddy Ernie, with whom I grew up with, lives in Toronto, Canada. We very often go up there. When we do, there are lots of children there in Toronto from Vienna that are in a similar boat to me, but they weren't in the castle, but were in a similar situation with me. I meet a lot of them there, but they are completely dispersed all over the world. I have another buddy of mine, we all three of us that grew up together. There was Ernie, Sammy, and me. Sammy lives in New York. He is still very, very orthodox, living in New York. And that's it. Some of the stories I remember when I first came to America, to New York, and Sammy came to meet me. And the first thing he said to me, you got to come with me. I got to show you something. I'll never forget that. He took me to a yeshiva in Williamsburg, New York, that he attended. He says, what does this remind you of? I said, 100% the yeshiva in Vienna that we both attended. What was it? It was the smell. As kids, we used to take garlic and candle wax and put it on the stove, on the hot stove, in order to make a smell in the room, so it would be impossible to stay there. This way, we got out of the lessons, out of the, with the Rebbe. Oh, he would say, "We stinkt es du. Arroz mit der." Everybody, get out of the room. Let's wait until it's clear. Same thing in New York, the same thing. And Sammy still lives there, and Ernie lives in Toronto. We're in touch. We speak on the phone. We get together a lot, and we see them. As a matter of fact, my friend Ernie was here not too long ago, and he stayed with us here. He spent a little while with us, and so did his brother Kurt from London. He came and he stayed here, and mainly we have our own friends here and in Chicago, and of course our family. So we live now a very happy and a very, very good life. And we're very grateful and very thankful to have such a nice family. And we consider ourselves blessed and lucky.
At this point, before we close, do you like to give a message for future generations?
Indeed I would. For future generations, a message to people. I don't know to whom I should say this or who would look at this and would see this. As far as whoever might see this or recognize the story or an occasion that might have happened to them, that someone might have made a snide remark to say that it hasn't happened or it wasn't that bad. Believe you me, it was worse. What I just told you, or what I'm describing here, is minuscule, so little, so much more has happened to other people that had it a lot worse than I did, 1,000 times worse than me. Those are the people that can tell you that came out of the concentration camps. They're about, you can see them, and even if they have died by this time, they have children, and their children can tell you their stories, and it's true. Remember a thing like that. If it happens, don't let it pass. Speak up and talk and say, what can I tell you? Don't be browbeaten ever, because it doesn't ever help. Speak back and speak out. So long as you're free and you can speak and you can say and you can talk and no one is holding you back, say it and talk up and tell them the truth. And the only thing that I really am very grateful for is for the state of Israel. But for the state of Israel, we Jews all over the world here walk with our heads 5 foot taller because we have a state, because we can say, and because we are proud of Israel for what they did till now and how important it is. What more can I say? I don't wish any happenings like this on anyone, ever. And hopefully that this will never happen in this country. I don't think so. People here are too free. People here know their freedom. They know, they'll speak up, they'll talk. They'll never let it happen here. I don't think so.
Thank you for sharing your testimony.
Entirely welcome.
Can you tell me who is sitting next to you?
This is my very lovely wife, my true love. With her, I spent the best years of my life. Without her, I'd be nothing. And I mean that sincerely. This is my girl forever. Forever and ever. I love her.
Her name?
Yeah, she knows my whole story and everything. We've raised a wonderful, beautiful family. We're so proud of them all. I wish they were here. I'd introduce them personally to you. They're all beautiful kids. They're all lovely. We're very proud of them. And above all, it was her doings, because she's the mom, the mamale. She's the beautiful mommy. We love her.
Tell me your wife's name.
My wife's name is Sherry.
Her maiden name.
And I call her Babe. This is my babe.
What's your maiden name?
Her maiden name was Leibovitz. She's from Chicago. We met in Chicago. She was born in Chicago, bred and born. And this is where we met, and that's where we married.
How did you know you wanted to marry your husband?
She was waiting all her life for me to come from across the ocean to Chicago to raise this beautiful family that we have. and to live a happy life. We are very happy,
How
very
many-
satisfied.
How many years are you married?
43.
43 years.
Would you like to say something about
It's a
your
life
husband?
sentence. I wish they would give me another one like that.
My soulmate.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
Greatest, the best.
Yeah.
Wonderful father.
Mm.
Very devoted father. Very loving husband. Very supportive to the whole family.
Thank you.
He's just the greatest.
Thank you. Tell me who is in this picture.
Well, on the left is my father, Ozzy Schwartz, and on the right is my mother, Sarah Schwartz. These pictures were taken in Vienna, Austria, around 1938, 39. There were little pictures, actually. One day, my daughter Judy, as a special gift to me, had them enlarged and put into this frame as a certain gift to me. I was so happy that she did that.
How did you get the originals?
The originals were given to me by my parents when I left. When I left Vienna, you know the story, when I left Vienna, they were given to me as a special remembrance. Remembrance is...
Who is in this picture?
This, on the left, myself, at the age of 13, and on the right, my brother Norbert, my little brother Norbert. Those pictures were taken in Vienna too, just before we left, just before I left. So, since then, also, I think Judy enlarged them and made them larger. My daughter Judy enlarged them.
What is this?
This is Grech Castle. This is the castle where I lived in North Wales, where I was evacuated from Ashford, Kent, where we all, 190 boys and girls, lived in this castle. This is the actual picture, the actual castle. And it's got a name which is actually Welsh. Grech Castle is spelled G-W-R-Y-C-H. Grech Castle, which is a Welsh name for bush, bushy castle, actually. That's what the translation means.
Who is in this picture?
In this picture, I have my family, except for the little ones, their children, that is. On the left is my youngest son, Richard, and my daughter, next to him, my daughter, Judy, and right after that, behind her, is her husband, Bob, his name is Robert, and my wife, Sherry, the babe, and I stand right behind her. Right next to me, in front of me, actually, is my daughter-in-law, Betty, and next to her, her husband, Kenny, and in front of Kenny is my daughter-in-law, Debbie, and right next to her, her husband, my son, Jeffrey.
Where was this taken?
This was taken at an affair that my son, Jeffrey, had at the Sears Towers. It was the bar mitzvah of his oldest son, Jason.
Who is this a picture of?
These two, these are the pictures. The picture of my two grandchildren, my oldest son's daughter, Jessica, and his son, Danny. Jessica and Danny, of my oldest son Kenny's, and my daughter-in-law Betty.
Who are these children?
These two children are my two grandsons from my second son Jeffrey. On the left is Matt, and on the right is Jason. Those are two lovely boys. And Jason already had his bar mitzvah, and Matt is going to have his the end of the year, this year.
Who is in this picture?
These are my two grandsons by Judy. Sammy and Alex. Now, she also has a daughter by the name of Lara.
Who is this little girl?
This little girl is my daughter Judy's daughter, Lara, and she's a very lovely little girl. Just started to walk, and she's very happy, very pretty little girl.
What are these papers?
These papers are a pack of letters that I received from my father and my mother from Vienna that I've accumulated and have saved from the days when they wrote this. This dates back to 1939. And they would write me almost twice a week regarding the situation there and how much that he wanted to be saved out of Vienna. I have these letters, and I'll keep them so long as I can. That's the only memorial that I have from my parents in their own handwriting.
Tell me about this article.
This article is a write-up about my trip to Vienna, and they called it the Mission to Vienna. This was the time when I put that memorial stone up in the cemetery for my father and my mother. And this is an article that was written about that very special trip, entitled that The Mission to Vienna, which it actually was. It was my mission to Vienna. For which I decided to do this. And it's a complete write-up in detail of the entire trip that I took and the reason that I described beforehand. And
Tell me about this picture.
this picture is about the memorial that I've put up for my mother and father in the cemetery. And whether or not you're able to read it, I'll read it to you. It says on there, "To be on record is a true memorial. Here lie the so-called ashes of our beloved father and the precious memories of our kind and dear mother. Our father, Osius Schwartz, was murdered in Buchenwald, and our mother, Sarah Schwartz, was deported to Theresienstadt, and then further deported to Auschwitz, and then death. Both our parents, innocent victims of bestial Nazi persecution, all that because of our Jewish faith. Osius Israel Schwartz was born February the 28th, 1894, killed by Nazis December the 12th, 1939. Sarah Taube Schwartz, born April the 10th, 1893, killed by Nazis July 1942. Dedicated with kind and indelibly dear remembrances of our beloved parents for their sacrifices and their lives and their love for us. Jack and Norbert, USA.